you look at the macros, I mean, we look at that Africa has 60% of the arable land worldwide, right? That we have 30 million smallholder farmers that are producing 80% of the production in sub-Saharan Africa, and that more or less 4% of this is going into waste. So just imagine the impact that we could have if we improve the yield, improve the efficiency, do better prediction, diminish this half of production that is lost. All this is results that we could achieve by building smart, new technologies, and our entrepreneurs are really, I mean, able to do that. So this is more an invitation, and I think to mention the importance of this sector that can really be transformative for the African continent.
Thank you. Sure. Interesting. I find it curiously ironic that the EU is kind of shedding agricultural spaces in order to be more sustainable, and Africa is kind of stepping up once again to be the breadbasket of the world. It's curious, it's interesting. Speaking of newer asset classes, I think that leads on really well to Nick. Nick from Vula is going to tell us a little bit about how his AI-based network matchmaking tool can bring funding to SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Vula was really born from the question, why is finance for businesses in Africa so expensive? Like terribly expensive. Expensive to the point where businesses don't even engage with financial opportunities anymore, right? They'd rather just die or bootstrap than begin to engage with financiers. And I think one of the beauties of this question of kind of AI as a tool that you brought up before, Suzanne, is how do we utilize this new machine intelligence to massively drive down the cost of funding these SMEs, the cost to serve this marketplace? Because in the end, finance really is only expensive because of two things. One is the operational cost to run your fund, and the other one is pricing in the risk. The reason we have so much risk in Africa is because nobody knows what's going on. There's no data, there's no visibility. And you know, we've had a 20-year history of VC and private equity and a much longer history of supposedly SME banking, but that's not very useful. And no one's been collecting the data. No one can tell you what's been going on. And because of that, the real group that suffers are entrepreneurs themselves. So what we decided to do was, if we take this AI machine intelligence and we direct it at this super unstructured set of data around business funding, and what comes out of that is this super structured network of what connections actually exist, what financial interventions have actually worked, and enable our clients, who are SME funders, to understand the lessons that they've already paid for and don't even know that they've learned. We can massively run down this cost. And what's super cool about when you do that in the context of SMEs to find their best funding options in an instant. Because if you understand the opportunities that are out there, in the perfect market, no one is running after each other. Funders aren't running after businesses that aren't compatible for them, and businesses aren't running after funding opportunities that they're not eligible for. In the past, it was super expensive to do that. You'd need a team, a dedicated team, to be running your investment pipeline, evaluating incoming businesses' applications. And as a business, you'd need a team looking out in the investment market. But I think the beautiful insight that Vula came up with is now we can use AI for all of that, because human time is precious and machine time is cheap. So if we wanted to do what we were doing now 5 years ago, it would cost me 100 times more to run Vula. And now we've got about 1,600 businesses using our tools, and thanks to the power of large language models applied specifically for this African context, we've been able to drive down those costs a lot and also start to serve our funder clients with a level of granular intelligence about their ecosystems that before was unimaginable.
absolutely. It's, you know, for another panel on another day, there's an interesting discussion for how sustainable the actual support of AI is, and then how you support sustainable businesses with that AI. It's a very contradictory little cycle. So we'll catch on to that soon enough. So you've obviously indicated that Vula would be impossible now without the AI, and it would be impossible with the scale you have raised it to. Interestingly, how many of the SMEs that are applying for funding are either AI or deep tech driven?
Yeah, there's definitely this idea that kind of innovation begets innovation, right? So if you create an ecosystem in which, you know, AI and deep tech companies can start to succeed and leverage their data commercially, then you know, more of them would pop up because it becomes, you know, it becomes attractive to the marketplace. I think that there's definitely going to be more of a space of really the information economy and using data and information to leverage for new revenue streams. But right now, it's less than 1% of the companies that are using us. One of the things that I think is interesting that you had actually mentioned before, Yassine, was, you know, this race towards the Sustainable Development Goals. You know, 2030, it's about to be 5 years away. Companies and countries that have been making these huge commitments now finally have to live up to what they're talking about and put it into 5-year plans. And yet, I would argue that the ability to know where we are in achieving the data on the ground. Like, how far away? Imagine somebody told you run a race, but you don't know where the finish line is. Or run a race and you don't actually know where in the race you are. That's literally where we're at, and we're 5 years away from these goals. So what is the digital and deep tech infrastructure that's going to enable us to just answer the question, have we reached the goal? Not even like, what super cool innovations do we need to achieve it? Just, where are we, right? And I think as we start to come to these realizations, they're scary, but these types of realizations are going to enable way more deep tech and AI companies to pop up, especially across Africa, because this is going to be the site of that great battle of whether the SDGs are won or lost.
I love that, the race that you don't know where the finish line is. What's interesting is you could argue by a broad categorization. We've got two people here who represent AI-developed platforms that they then offer a service off of, and we have two people who are molding the ecosystem, who are changing it, who are enabling startups to thrive. And innovation begets innovation, support begets support. We spoke briefly about, as the panel, we were discussing that often there's this idea that there isn't enough talent or enough bright minds in Africa to develop AI tools. We feel we strongly disagree with that. What might be difficult is developing the context-specific understanding to implement an AI or a deep tech solution that is appropriate for its market. So I'd like everybody on the panel to go one by one and just comment a little about how do we find where the finish point in the race is for startups and innovations.